This time from Yerushalmi Pesachim, the article Ozvan edition where Mamash Atap Lam and Avav, the beginning of the new Mishnah of Halacha Beis, which in the Vilna is Adav Chavav Amud Beis, Halacha Beis. Kayotzebo. Similarly, with terming of Minhagim, places where you come, places where you go. Hamolech Perish Shvis Makam Shkoli. You take Perish Shvis in a place where they have been eliminated. Says Kamnei L'chaim Min Asada. No longer any left out for the animals in the field. Kamnei Makam Varan Min Abayis. People in that location have to remove them from their houses. V'lichas El Makam Shlokol. He took some place where they're not yet eliminated. Now so Makam B'dayin Ochlim now Kanusi Abayis. There were the people in new locations still eating from Perish Shvis they have in the house. So nevertheless. Or vice versa. It's to be machmir like the place where the arkola and he has to be mavir the peshvis. You know, Mer, it was a same available. Go out and bring you as well. And Cormier says the Gemara will explain. Okay, so we'll see what the Gemara explains. Says the Gemara. Kolam Tveria velo kolam Tzipori. Says the Kormeidam. Ravina guys. Ravina said, "Seva velcha afata." Tam Ravina seva velcha afata. Hamorichem makom shelo kol. If you take them to a place where they have not yet been eliminated in the field, makom shekalu, a place where they have been eliminated. Pali, he argues, and he says you don't have to eliminate them. Sheyachol, you don't have to be mavir and pay you brought. Sheyachol lomar, he can say, the people to where whence he came. You bring also from Tzipori. Shisham Kolu. And it's not a machlekes or deviation of the minhag. Came shreis makom shemutar shahem, since they came from a place in the mutar. The fact that they're now in Feri doesn't matter. You go bring food from Feri as well. Okay, so let's read that back inside. Back in the Gemara. Call me Tveria, below calling Tzimmer, Amalam Tzipori. I brought them from Tzipori, where they're perfectly fine. And Admameni, you don't believe it, I did. Seva Belchafata. You go there, you'll find out that I'm telling the truth. I'm beginning by Pinchas Rabbi Yossi, Pinchas Rabbi Yossi Shneim Amru Davar Echad. I guess it's Rabbi Pinchas and Rabbi Yossi, both sets of Amoraim, said the same thing. The time we learned, Ochlin Mufkar Ochlin Shimor. You can eat the Peir Shvis on the basis of Mufkar. In other words, the place where they are, there's still fruit in the field where it's hefker, people probably observing Shemitah. You can use that as the basis for not doing biur, but not on Shomer. Shomer, they're not the place where they're safeguarding their pair of Shemitah, and not being mafka them, which is obviously Shalom Kedin. So therefore, the fact that there's still fruit over there on the trees because they're being Shomer their peros, you can't rely on that to prevent to avoid doing beer on your fruit, and that's not considered to be that there's still chaya basada. Rabbi Yossi Omer Afal Shomer. You can even eat on fruit which is shomer. In other words, place where chayas can have fruit because it's shomer. Seems difficult because, and Achronim have very difficulty with this. I mean, he's doing our people, however, Avera. It's interesting that the Pnei Moshe has a slight spin on this. He says, the first Tana holds, the Tanakama holds that it's not, you can't rely on that. This feeling the Bayin Shem Mufkal Akol, Yossi Matir Afal Shom is man Shechol Chayel Famim Lechom Mimenu. So it has to be that the Chay can get at it. But in any event, it doesn't really help that much. But the Gemara says that continuing on with Rabbi Yossi, I'm like, I brought them in the place where there is shomer, and therefore there's still fruit for the chayos. If you may have my meaning, if you don't believe me, I raise up Look, there's a side of Meshuma there. you'll bring it from there. Okay, and you can eat on that basis. The article does bring down to machlekes whether the fruit which one comes from a field which is shomer are mutter or not. The Ramban holds that they are mutter. Other Rishonim holds they aren't mutter, and the question is also whether this is a soda which shmura only on account of chayas, not for people allowed to go there, and or a field in which even people are not allowed to go. Most of the place can pass in that a field in which people are not allowed to go, which people are prevented from coming and taking the fruit, is also bachila. But in any event, from the Gemara doesn't seem to differentiate. It doesn't seem to be speaking just about a field with shomer min achayis. It seems to be about also field with shomer min adam, and saying the bottom line is that that place is still, as far as beer is concerned, there's still fruit for the chayos in the field, and therefore I don't have to do beer. Okay, halacha gimel. Makom shnagul limkar behema dakal going, a place where the custom is to sell the small animals to non-Jews. Mochin, you're allowed to sell. Shalolim kar. They don't sell small animals to non-Jews. Why? Because it says because you might come to sell behema gasa, large animal, which is also, as we shall see momentarily. A person should not deviate on account of creating machlokas, which of course we say yesterday, but the Yerushalmi Shita about means even the chumrah, right? A person should be machmir in a place where people are meko. You don't sell to them large animals, even agolim bisachim, even in the form of calves or young donkeys. Shleimu ushvurim, whether they are whole or where they are broken, whether suitable for work or not. So why is that? So the Korban says, because they're designated for work. A person will do malacha with them on Shabbos. A person is forbidden to do work, and the people who see the goy working the animal will think that it's a Jew's animal that he bought from the Jew. Will think it's the Jew's animal working on Shabbos. Even Shavurim, all part of the Gzeir not to sell the Behem Agasa to a non-Jew. Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to sell them a broken animal. Says Korbaneted Lo Mashlu Shachtulu. They're not going to leave it around because it's not useful. They're going to shecht it. He'll go Chazi Yisrael Kabigoyim L'Hashem Yisrael Mechiyah Chrisa. If the Jew is not going to see it by a goy and won't come to be matir selling an animal which can do work. The Messiah matir b'sus. The Messiah permits a horse. Because it says it's only used for riding. The is only the banan. There's no issur of shvis, no din of shvis is behemto vis-a-vis riding, only vis-a-vis doing work. Because ein elam mishshvus yishum d'oraisa. Shum d'chaynos is also because the rider is going to be carrying his own weight. Less money also the skills. Therefore, not concerned that people are going to come to use the horse. That's not right. What I mean to say is not. We don't care if people loan or if the shvis event applies to the main magasa of a Jew, so you're not even allowed to loan out your behem magasa or rent it out to a non-Jew because the shvis is bamto. But a horse, if you loan it out or rent it out to a non-Jew, all it's going to do is ride in it. That's not a problem. The Pnei Moshe have underlined here, so that's what he says. He says the machlokas is actually, if it's for horses, not just ben is matir, everybody's matir. The question is one which is used for birds. The hunters bring birds on these horses. The the bird carries itself. But only Adam a person carries himself. Who don't mean it? But birds sometimes they double down. And Allah says no, Allah is not like in this respect. Okay, in any event, the article is interesting, brings down, I guess he felt necessary, without any extended references, says, in our day and age, we sell all sorts of animals to non-Jews, and the post can explain the heter in seven ways, in Shulchan Aruch, Yordes, and Mekuf Nun Aleph. Okay, says Gemara, Mutter Legado, says Bnei Moshe B'Tmiya, but the Perek Muba and Megalim B'Eretz Yisrael. How are you going to sell them? You're not allowed to raise them in Eretz Yisrael. So Rabbi said, Kigon Mahir, such as a place, there are certain places you're allowed to raise them, such as a place called Mahir. Shushisha Shamil, which is 16 meal or 16 meal. So it's Bnei Moshe. Hashem Midbar Eretz Yisrael. It was a place, it was a desert Eretz Yisrael, Tezai meal. Shomatah Gada Ba'im Magdak, and they're allowed to raise small animals. The reason they're allowed to raise small animals because they might very often, like happened with lots animals, they went and they grazed in other people's fields. But if there's this large area, 16 mil, which is hefker, which is desert, they're allowed to raise small animals. Now which you're allowed to sell to raise small animals. So sheep in Eretz is in a place is in Midbaros, such as this place called Mahir. Okay, they wanted to say Madamar Mutalim Kor. They wanted to say those hold you're allowed to sell animals, non-Jews to the animals non-Jew. Mutar liyached. You're also allowed to leave alone the animals with the non-Jews. Give them their animals for safekeeping, even though they'll be schooled. The animal's not concerned with them having intimate relations with the animals. But they were also but the man holds it's also to sell. Also, Yachid holds you're not allowed to allow seclusion of non-Jews with animals. Rabbi Yehuda said, no, if you look at the Mutalim Kor, even if you say allowed to sell it, you're not allowed to miyachid, and you're not allowed to give your animal for safekeeping and seclusion to a non-Jew because you're over lifnei iver. You own the animal, you're giving him your animal, you might be intimate with it, you're over lifnei iver because they're not allowed to be intimate with animals. Ma ben yikor, ma ben liyachid. So Gemara says, okay, why are you allowed to sell if you're not allowed to be miyachid? Tamar, so once you sell it to him, came with shimochalo kibento shakamhu. Once you tell him it's his animal, and so it's not just not why, but still, why not overlive neighbor? Okay, granted, it's his animal, but overleaf neighbor by the point of sale. So the Quran explains, Tam b'chir came shloch l'arei kendo she'akum b'chas al b'hema shlo te'aker. Shnatzis akar b'irvia. He's not going to be intimate with his own female sheep because it's going to cause it to become barren. It won't be able to give birth. With our female sheep, he's not concerned. He doesn't own it, so therefore he can be intimate with it. But when it's his own female sheep, he's not going to be intimate because he doesn't want it to be barren. Okay, and here it still belongs to the Jew, so he has no such qualms, and therefore he's suspect on it. However, I wrote inside my Gemara, I doubt the article brings it down, that I remember vaguely from, I think it was a Tzitz Eliezer somewhere, and I think he brought it up from Dogam Mirvava. I think it's there in Simon Kufar that once on sales there's no lifnei iver. What the Yerushalmi is saying is that once I sell it to him, it's his animal, and I'm not allowed to pay it because it's after the sale. I'm not responsible for after the sale. I'm only responsible for what happens when it's still my animal. Okay, so not because he's going to be chas on the animal, because after the point of sale, when the article brings down something about it. No, it's actually Ksab Sefer. It's a Ksav Sefer says there's a by Messiah there over Avera. So I'm not sure it applies to by Lifnei Iver Mamish, but by Messiah there's a difference between Sid Messiah before the Avera and Sid Messiah at the time of the Avera. There's no Sid Messiah before the Avera, such as selling the animal to an Oiver Bodazara in a place where he has other animals, so it's not Lifnei Iver. So it's a Messiah is only to take part at the time that the person is being over the Avera. So Lifnei Iver is Shaykh also by Mecher, and but Messiah is not. So the Afkamina is if the guy has other animals which you over the Avera, there'd be you're not being over Lifnei Iver because he has other animals, and Messiah, and you're not over Messiah because you're selling it to him, not. And then what happens afterwards is no Getter Messiah because Messiah's assistance at the time. That's the Ksav Sefer Skiluk. Ksav Sefer in, where is it? Let's see, I'll find where it is. Somewhere. Don't see anymore, I'm welcome. I don't see it, but it must be somewhere. Oh, no, don't see where it writes. And in fact, in the light of manuscript, the Gemara just asks, ends, it came from Mochel lo b'hem toshagoyu. Doesn't add that Bram hach b'hem toshagoyu v'choshel now. So that would actually perhaps be in line with the Ksav Sefer, assuming he had other animals as well. It's not like the Aver, and it's not Messiah, because once it becomes a goy, it becomes a goy. No, actually, I take that back. That's a mistake. I see now that that's figuring out later on. The line of manuscripts take out at a later stage, not over here. Sorry. Don't think it's taking it over here. Yeah, some people say that the line took it out over here, but it's not necessarily. Never mind. So scratch that. Anyway, moving on. That was not too confusing. Let me just read it again inside, according to the two different shots we gave. Once he sells it, it's his animal. Akum is not choshen his own animal. So the Jews for animals, so he is choshen to have mishka behema with it. That's according to the Karmeda and Moshe. According to the way I wanted to explain, which is similar to Ksav Sefer, assuming it's talking about Messiah and not Lifnei Iver, because Lifnei Iver would still apply even by itself. We would say, Time Akim Shemachalo Kabem Shalakamu. Well, since he sold him and he had other animals, there's no Messiah anymore. It's his animal. But here, Bemto Yisrael, still Yisrael's animal, and he's choshen on it, and therefore, since you're being actively Messiah, so therefore it's also. Okay, so the Mishnah we mentioned with the Korban Eidah, and also Pnei Moshe the same thing, that the reason why now so the Behem Adakla to a Goy is because you might come to say Behem Agasa. The Yerushalmi doesn't know that at this point. It's not like the Yerushalmi ever knows that, but that's taken from evidently based on the Bavli. Because the Yerushalmi asks, okay, now if you're going to sell it to the Goy and it's not a problem, if Neighbor Messiah, for whatever reason, then why not not allowed to sell the Behem Adakla to a Goy? So, Lama, because you're parting from Rashis Agez, the mitzvah Rashis Agez, which would be applied to the sheep, the wool of the sheep. It belongs to a Jew, you're exempting it from that mitzvah. So this is where Agatz Mechar She okay, but the Behem Adakla includes goats, and you don't have Rashis Agez. Why not sell the goat to a guy? Shemotidei Bechera, because it can give birth to a Bechora. And the Bechor would be Kodesh, and this way it's not going to be Kodesh. It's all great. So Hagat Moshe Zachar. Okay, so what about a male? It's not going to have any kids. No exempt from Bechora. Shemutim de Matanos, because you're moving it from the Matnos from the Matanos or Chaim Keva, which you would give to Kohen. Okay, so there's more says, come on. In that case, so don't sell wheat. Because you're exempting this wheat and challah. I mean, Yain v'shem alim kalo. Why not? Shouldn't say to him. Shematzidei bracha. Because you're going to make a bracha on it. You're not going to make a bracha on it. And the Gemara doesn't seem to answer this question. So that's why the article suggests that, well, the reason Yerushalmi is really also because it might come to some behema gasa, but it's not explicit in the Yerushalmi. Okay, so it says, "B'kom makom emchem behema gasa." So our Mishnah said it's a minhag not to sell a behema daka. No matter what, you can't sell behema gasa. Ma behema gasa, ma behema daka. What's in Shina gasa? You can't sell them. Behema daka, you can't sell them. Behema gasa yesh bo shu b'chiv chatos. Behema gasa has a chiv chatos. Now, what dafka chiv chatos? It means this is the raisa of shvis bemto on Shabbos. So in other words, people are going to see the animal being used in Shabbos and going to continue to make on shvis bemto. So therefore, which is the raisa. Behema daka mechiv chatos. Behema daka, there's no melach the raisa involved. So it says, wait, there's a melach the raisa involved. Bein chole, bein gozes, well, it can be milked, it can be shorn, right? So isn't that the raisa? So Taman hu mischayev. There he's chayev. From hacha he mischayeves, but here she's mischayev. It's very long chiluk. By the cholev and by gozes, it's a chiyuv gavra. The person who's doing it is one who's chayev. So therefore, people are not going to. If you sell it to a non-Jew, so and people see the non-Jew doing it, they're not going to say, well, if you're allowed to be gozes or cholev on Shabbos, clearly it's a non-Jew doing it. But by shlichus be'emto, it's a chiyuv chefza. It's an animal doing work. And people are not going to realize that this animal, which once belonged to Yisrael, now belongs to Goy. And they're going to say, oh, you see, Yisrael's animal is doing work on Shabbos. Must be there's no issue shlichus be'emto. You're allowed to lay your animal work on Shabbos. So again, because one is on the Gavra, the malachas on the Gavra, so then when the Goy is doing it, of course, we're not concerned. You're going to come to draw the wrong conclusion. The Goy is allowed to it. But since she said it's on the Chepza, when you see the animal working on Shabbos, people are going to come to assume that Shvisas Bemta is not also. And they're going to come, Michshol is going to come out of that. Okay, Chepza Gavra in the Gemara, in the Yerushalmi here. The Gemara goes on. Yeah, but it still belongs to the people don't know it belongs to the Goy. And here's where the Lighter manuscript doesn't have this. That's shitfa of the Gemara before. It's not relevant here. So here it's here. Why is Marasign? Why is an issue? People know the Goy. It's the Goy's animal. So Gemara says, Rabbi Yami Bavloi b'Shem Rabbanon Tamar Bavloi Sinei Rabbis in Bavel Punish Mochel in Yisrael. Sometimes he sells the Goy for a test. V'machzir lo achar shloshi yomim, and he gives it back after 3 days. V'nimtza over aver b'vhem tosh Yisrael, and therefore during those 3 days might include Shabbos, and he's being over and aver as b'vhem tosh Yisrael. So the Shas says here, Kan muchal ta'abim v'chira al-tanai hu adayin eno lokuach rakshol. He's saying, well, you see here that the conditional sale, it's not really purchased. It's only borrowed, because it says Yisrael is being over abera. And then he has a whole discussion of this, and whether this is true or not true. But I don't think that's the pshat here. I think that it's possible that it belongs to the Goy. And Rab Dafka that Yisrael is being over Abera. But it's a Marazayin issue. It looks like Yisrael is being over Abera because it's being given the Goy for for a test, and he's going to get back afterwards, and people are not going to realize during those few days that's given for a test, it will actually belong to the non-Jew. So therefore, since people are not going to realize that there's a Maris Ayin issue involved, not that it's actually not purchased by the guy, it could be Goy that could purchase it. It could be Mechira tonight is about Mechira for that time. But here, the issue is one of Maris Ayin, not an issue of actual ownership. So in the Bible, the Gemara answers slightly differently. Gemara says that if you allow Yisrael to sell it to a non-Jew, he's likely to rent or to loan it to a non-Jew, and then it in fact still remains its owner's and is mechuyev in shvisa. And when the Oviklam works it, he's shvisa spamto. And also sometimes the Jews going to sell it to the Oviklam samach nisas Shabbos, and the koina is going to want to use it on Shabbos right away, and it's still if it to want to test it first, they're going to test it on Shabbos, and the seller is going to help him test it, and then there's going to be a shvisas behamto. So, in any event, it seems that if it's the issue is, of course, that you're not allowed to sell a bein magasa to the guy, because you might come to one of these situations where it's more directly shvisas behamto, even though where that is actually shvisas behamto, even though in this case after the sale it's not shvisas behamto, but other misunderstandings might arise, which would then lead to actual cases of shvisas behamto. So again, somebody sees that the animal sold to a non-Jew, will think, okay, there's no din of shvisas behamto when it's my hands non-Jew. I can also loan my animal or rent out my animal non-Jew, and I still won't be over in shvisas behamto. Okay, now the Gemara asks, okay, if the issue is that the nisayon, right? Me'atos, so say the nisayon aser. So to sell it on consignment or tonight, that should be also because of the Maris Ayin Dikhi issue. If it's a clean break, it should be okay. So they say, look, they also even a permanent sale because it might come to be a temporary sale and people would, think that come to conclude that there is no Isser Shvisas Behamto when your animal is in the hands of a non-Jew. What if you did sell Konsibo? So then we do we fine him? In other words, it's only a minute. We will not sell a bein medaka to Akum. If you did sell the bein medaka to Akum, do we fine you? Don't we fine you? Over machar konsibo. Do we do a knas? Question. Kashem shekonsi halacha kaka konsi nek. Says more. Yes, just like you konsi halacha, which is if somebody says over and so the bein magasa to a non-Jew, he has to buy back. So too, if a person sold bein medaka non-Jew, he also has to buy back. Minay konsibo leminag. How do we know that we're konsi leminag? Because we have a case. Chad b'nai zamin gam l'chad aramoy. The person sold a camel to a non-Jew. As Uvdu Kumida Reb Shimon Lakish, the story came from Shimon Lakish. The Kansei, the Kifline, he made the seller pay double, begin the Asli Gama to buy back his camel. So what's the right from here? I'm basically doing the Sarsa Konso. They were kindness to the middleman. They brought them and they cursed him out. They called him son of a seller of an agent, a middleman for a non-Jew. So Chomei explains, the Moshe explains, the sarsu the konsu, the mocha atzmo lam b'shum minhago. The sarsu to not to be a sarsu is only a minhag. To not to be a mocha is the ikra halacha. The medina also because for the mocha it's also medina. The hemagasa because it's also hemagasa. Like amilamaso, the camel carries burdens, which is shvisas behamto. It's not for riding; it's for burdens. It is sarsu shemachor. They sold it to an agent. Umidina shari. And according to the letter of the law, it's permissible. And there was a custom there not so therefore it was just a minhag. So evidently the seller was really a non-Jew. The agent was the Jew. And they find the agent, even though it was only a minhag not to sell to an agent. Now, the Carbon 8 changes the Girsa here. The Carbon 8 actually changes the Girsa. It says, Minayin, to Minayin, Shekonsin Bo Lahalocha. He learns that this is not, we're not bringing a source for a minhag, and it's not, the Sarasur is immaterial here, really. He says that the issue is the halacha. How do we know it comes from halacha? And this is the source of halacha that we find the guy double to buy back the camel. And the fact that it was a Sarasur, no distinction between a Sarasur and a regular seller, as it's say about halacha. Okay, so the Gemara says, Ma. Rabbi Shimon Lakish, when he says Psak, is he Rabbi Yehuda? Is he's blaspheming like Rabbi Yehuda? So the name Moshe explains. Shoshas Ma'apsak says Rabbi Shlokish Rabbi Yisrael like Rabbanan. Tiny Tosef Reish Beit Beis B'Choros V'Chasa Kam Bataka is missing here. Somebody buys the fetus of a cow and a goy. Somebody tells them, Abi Shein Rashai, even though he's not permissible to do it. When they do it, somebody makes a partnership with him. Somebody gives a partnership. Somebody receives him an animal in order to raise it. Somebody gives it to him an animal to raise it. All these kids are part of Bechorah. Somebody receives an animal from a non-Jew, even though he's not permitted to do so, raise a mala b'shavio, he has to reckon its value, and give half of its value to the Kohen. Somebody gives it to non-Jew to raise, even though he's not to do so. His mala also, he reckons its value, and he has to give even 10 times its value, litin dama l'Kohen. Since there's a finger of the guy in the middle, his hand is in there some sort of way, shape, or form. It's exempt from Bechera. There are no fines involved. Time is, it says Rabbi Yehuda, place where we're not supposed to do whatever you did. Since you gave your animal to a guy to raise, so it would be exempt from Bechera. It's like selling to a non-Jew this large animal. Even though according to the law it's part of Minachara. Because the hand of the guy has control here. Nevertheless, we find a Mala Nachri Litilo Kama Bakamishavi when you have to give the Nachri 7 times its value, Kadeshitim Bechorah coin. So you give actually not the money to the Kohen, like I said a moment ago, but you give the money to the non-Jew to get back the Bechor. But Dam the Kohen to knock it. We just said you give the money to Kohen. Lav Dafka, no, it's not Dafka. El Klomar Shabachor should be Dam of the Shavi Yitin the Kohen. Rather, you give the money to the non-Jew to get the Bechor to give back to the Kohen. So they say Rabbi Shimon Lakish Rabbi Yehuda. There's going like Rabbi Yehuda Shita over there in Bechiros. Okay, again, Rabbi Shimon Lakish Rabbi Yehuda, the Tani that we learned. Kashem Yehuda. Okay, Behem Agoy B'Yoda Bechor Ma'olim B'Shaveh. You have to reckon its value. Nasi Chatzi Dami LeKohen, and you give half its value to a Kohen. This is somebody who, even though in this case you're actually giving half of the value to the Kohen. To the because you don't really own the animal, you receive the animal from the guy to raise. So you give half that to the Kohen. But not so Kabbalah, if it's your animal, you give it to the guy to raise. Then if you ask him you pay even 10 times as much to the non-Jew. And let's go to the Kohen to give all the money to the Kohen again. Lav Dafka, you give all the money to the non-Jew in order to get back to the Bechor. That's why go back to So it seems that Rabbi Shimon Lakish is going to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, so is that the case? So one's going to say whatever it says, but we're way over time and way over Daf Lamed Aleph, so we'll leave that for tomorrow.